Good afternoon and welcome everybody to another session of the Sci-Café. My name is Nadia and I will be your moderator for today. Today's topic is on the hydrogen economy, something which I think is very relevant for the world in which we live in today. We're all kind of looking for that cleaner, greener, smarter society. We've all seen the climate change protests happening in different cities globally, right? Something's got to give. And with regards to research, scientists are looking for sustainable energy alternatives, and hydrogen is one of them. So I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation today with regards to what we here at KAUST are doing to contribute to this low-carbon hydrogen economy. And as you can see, I'm joined by 3 KAUST faculty, so we're going to hear from them first, and then we're going to hear from you guys in the audience. Please get your questions ready. And for those of you watching on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, you can ask questions in the comments section. So I think, Andy, I'm going to hand it over to you to start us. Just introduce yourself, and maybe tell us a little bit about how your research here at KAUST contributes to a low-carbon hydrogen economy.
Thank you, Nadia, for the introduction, and thank you for having me here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andy. I'm a faculty member of the Chemical Science program and the KAUST Kadar Center. So first of all, let me echo what Nadia has just mentioned and reiterate the fact that hydrogen is a low-carbon fuel. Even at the present time, when we have to produce hydrogen from fossil fuels, due to the high efficiency of hydrogen fuel cells, if we consider transportation applications, we can still effectively cut the CO2 emission by 30%. And for the future, hydrogen is a promising alternative for intermediate energy storage from renewables, such as solar energy. However, in order to materialize the so-called hydrogen economy, we still need significant advancements in the technology for hydrogen storage and delivery. And my research group at KAUST works on the development of carbon-neutral catalytic processes and power generation systems based on formic acid as a hydrogen energy carrier. And I'm very happy to have this opportunity to come here to share some of our views with the audience today. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, great. Gaetano, maybe I'll hand it over to you next. Same thing, introduce yourself and just let us know how your research is contributing to the hydrogen economy.
Okay. I'm Gaetano. I am a faculty in the Clean Combustion Research Center. I want to give you a little bit broader view of what hydrogen economy is first. I want to start with a quote from Jules Verne, a French writer that you all know, is the father of sci-fi. He wrote in 1874, water one day will be employed as fuel. Its constituent, hydrogen and oxygen, either singly or together, will furnish an unextinguishable source of heat and light. So, in a nutshell, this is what the hydrogen economy is about. Back then was a dream of a writer, now is a vision for a sustainable energy, a sustainable economy. This is just one piece of this complex puzzle we're trying to solve to really fight climate change. Let me explain a little bit more clearly. As renewable energy such wind and solar become widespread, we'll have excess energy available. This is because those energy sources are variable energy sources. We can predict, but we cannot control when the electricity will be produced. Therefore, there will be, one day, excess electricity that we can either waste because we cannot input to the grid, or we can use it to produce a fuel. A carbon-neutral fuel, such as hydrogen, or more likely a hydrogen carrier. Carbon-neutral fuels, what we call e-fuels, such as ammonia, methanol, or formic acid. In the Clean Combustion Research Center, the research we're performing is to understand how to use this fuel that one day will become available, what is the fundamental combustion science that govern them, and how to actually implement it in an engine, in a gas turbine. In particular, we have worked on methanol, and more recently, for example, on ammonia. This is a fuel that contains hydrogen, doesn't contain any carbon atom, so would not produce any CO2 emission if the hydrogen that we use to produce ammonia is also carbon-free. But of course, it's very complex to burn. It's not a straightforward process. And the research we're conducting at KAUST is to understand the science and how to implement it in the engines of the future when this fuel will be available.
Okay, nice one, Gaetano, thank you. Choon, I think I'll hand it over to you. Don't forget to introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Choon from the Water Desalination and Reuse Center. Actually, I stumbled into this topic of hydrogen by accident while reading a magazine about 5-6 years back. And because my background is in solar, also being a mechanical engineer, I'm also intrigued by the amount of solar energy that is available in the kingdom. And if we can convert the renewable solar into a liquid organic hydrogen carrier, like formic acid mentioned earlier, then there is a good opportunity for us to have a fuel that you don't have to compress. It's at atmospheric pressure. It's a liquid fuel, and you can use it for remote applications in many areas, which we elaborate later. Thank you.
Thank you, Choon. Okay, so let's kind of put this into perspective. We've got Andy's research, which is looking at the storage of hydrogen using hydrogen carriers. This kind of buzzword, formic acid, keeps popping up. Then Gaetano's research, which looks at using these hydrogen carriers in combustion, so cars. And then Choon is just looking at it from a completely different angle and talking about the production of hydrogen through renewable energy, so solar, not fossil fuels. Right? And I mean, this year, Saudi Aramco opened up its first hydrogen fueling station. And next year, the UK have vowed to put 20 hydrogen-fueled double-decker buses on the roads. So it almost seems like this is an easy gig, but we're talking about a few challenges here too, right? When I was listening to Gaetano, there was a few challenges in there. So I think my follow-up question is, and I'm going to ask it first before you guys ask your questions. With regards to the challenges, you know, what do you think is the biggest challenge? Is it the storage and then the transportation of hydrogen? Or is it actually the production of hydrogen? I don't know which one of you might want to answer that first. Andy, go on ahead.
Okay, I go first.
Okay.
As I just pointed out, in order to materialize the so-called hydrogen economy, we need significant advance in the technology for hydrogen storage and delivery. Although I think we have a pretty good solution already. But I think the biggest challenge for hydrogen economy is money. Compared to other counterparts, such as internal combustion engine, battery-based electric systems, hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cells are more expensive, partially due to the limited manufacturing capacity nowadays. But it is still the right thing to do. Because I believe in the future, our currency is energy. So we need to use and develop a cleaner and more efficient way to utilize the energy. And for me, I think the cost can be adjusted by policies and change of people's mindsets. For example, we all know burgers are cheaper and more convenient, but we are still willing to pay a little bit more for healthier food. And I think that's exactly the attitude that we need to have towards energy. And I strongly believe that hydrogen would be an important component in our future energy picture. And in that future, formic acid is likely to play a role. And we should do it now, and do not wait until it is too late. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Does anybody else want to follow up with something else on the challenges of hydrogen? Is it production? Is it the storage and the transportation?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, I'm interested in the production of hydrogen liquid fuel from renewable solar. If you look at the sun, all our energy comes from the sun. And the planet Sun is about 109 times bigger in diameter than the planet Earth. So the amount of solar energy landing on the Earth's surface in the projected area sense is about 174,000 terawatt, while our yearly usage is only about 18.7 terawatt. So you can see there's great opportunity to utilize solar energy to convert into a convenient hydrogen battery, which is the liquid fuel. So in Chaos, I started constructing an efficient harvester system to collect the solar energy. So currently our efficiency is around 22%, which is one of the highest. And we are able to convert through electrolyzer. It's a catalyst-based electrolyzer where we supply carbon dioxide and deionized water to get formic acid. Of course, this is just a small prototype, desktop level, but we can see that we can get about 10 to 14% concentration of formic acid from this supply of voltage at about 3 to 3.5 volt DC to the electrolyzer. So there's a good hope, there's a good future to generate formic acid from the solar energy directly without having to go through other processes.
Great, thank you, Choon. So we should tap into what we naturally have, right? The sun. Why not? Gaetano, do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, quite a bit. So, let's think also in terms of how we utilize with this hydrogen or this hydrogen carrier. Let me start first of all answering why we don't focus just on gaseous hydrogen. I believe, and is right, we need to aim big. We need this grand challenge, but I also think we need also to start small and make small progress as soon as they are available. Hydrogen in the gaseous phase can do a little bit right now. For example, the excess energy that we're producing with current renewable can be stored in the form of hydrogen and inserted directly in the natural gas grid that's present in many countries. So places like Italy, UK, we use quite a bit of natural gas. Up to 6% can be inserted of hydrogen by volume with no changes to the current grid. And this will give a reduction in CO2 emission, for example, for residential housing, already of 2%. If we have more hydrogen, as we increase more the hydrogen, the renewable, so we'll have more hydrogen available, we can use this hydrogen for helping power plants that already exist and can now operate up to 70% of hydrogen by volume, greatly reducing their carbon footprint. This is for like a short-term vision. Of course, fuel cell or even combustion of hydrogen in, let's say, long-haul track, this is something, for example, Volvo is investigating, is an option for longer-term future, okay? But I also want to point out why we're looking at alternatives, like formic acid or ammonia, what we're studying here. If I go back to the example that Andy made of gasoline as a burger, okay? Hydrogen is a very healthy salad, okay? It's the option that we should choose. But to pack the same energy that we have in the one burger, in terms of volume, you will need a plate of salad that's as tall as the solar tower that we have out there. This is the reason why using gaseous hydrogen at atmospheric pressure is impractical. We need to compress it, so we're compressing this solar tower of lettuce in a very small plate, something still this big. This way, we're reaching pressures that are around 600, 700 bar. Those are extremely high pressure. They require energy, so we're losing energy in the compression step, and it poses some safety risk. Of course, an explosion in a hydrogen tank would be the end, because of the public perception of the risk of hydrogen, to the hydrogen economy. And I also want to stress the term hydrogen economy. We're not just talking of using this fuel, but creating an economy around it. If you're storing this excess energy in chemical bond, in ammonia, formic acid, or methanol, then you have a commodity that can be exchanged on the global market, can be transported, and therefore you have an economy that's built around it. Formic acid is, of course, a good example. We're looking also at ammonia. The reason why in the Clean Combustion Research Center we're looking at ammonia is because there is already a very strong infrastructure for both production and transportation of ammonia. And when you're thinking of introducing a new fuel, those are very important elements. So combustion is something we can do research and we can try to solve, maybe combining ammonia with biofuels or with hydrogen itself. But having already a network for production and transportation is essential for the hydrogen economy. Okay.
Fantastic. Okay. I mean, yeah, hydrogen really is the future. And we just go back to Andy's, your burger. We all don't eat burgers all the time, right? We eat healthy, and we could eat burgers because they're really cheap, but we need to start putting the money into and get that added value out. Do you want to add something else?
Because hydrogen is indeed the more efficient way to utilize the energy.
So it seems. So now I'm going to open it up to you guys in the audience. Does anybody have any questions? I feel like I have a million questions after that. Yes, Jean-Marie. Hang on a second, I get you the microphone. I won't throw it to you.
I would like to speak about what we have done with KAUST on hydrogen, with a company called Air Liquide, which is the #1 producer of hydrogen in the world. And probably, as you all know, at this moment, hydrogen is made from methane by steam reforming of methane. And probably you know that these are numbers, but I apologize. For 1 kilogram of hydrogen, steam reforming of methane is producing 10 kilograms of CO2. These are the numbers, okay? Nobody can be against those numbers. At KAUST, we have developed a process for making hydrogen with making much less CO2, still starting from fossil fuel, but we crack methane to carbon and hydrogen instead of steam reforming, which makes CO, CO2, and hydrogen. We crack methane and we make carbon. We can put carbon in the roads, and we make hydrogen. Even if it is still starting from methane, for 1 kilogram of hydrogen, we make only 3 kilograms of CO2. So 3 kilograms versus 10 kilograms. This is a process that we have developed in KAUST, okay? And we are still working with Air Liquide, Aramco, to develop this process, but of course we can jump quickly to the solar energy, but at least we have a solution to divide by more than 3 the amount of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen. Perhaps you didn't mention, but people should know that the CO2 produced by the steam reforming of methane represents 3% of the total CO2 produced worldwide. 3%. It's fantastic, So, and probably this CO2 is corresponding to the amount of ammonia, because ammonia is fertilizer and so on, and ammonia is requiring a lot of hydrogen, and also refining. So I just would like to say that, of course, we can jump to the solar energy and all these topics, but at least there are solutions in between, let's say, between now and 2015, in which we can produce hydrogen with much less CO2. I just wanted to tell you that because it belongs to the difficulty of challenging with hydrogen.
Yes.
Okay?
I think we totally agree. As I just mentioned, even at present time, if we have to produce hydrogen from fossil fuels, hydrogen is still the more efficient way of utilizing energy.
Oh, yes.
And in the process, you still reduce the overall CO2 emission. So hydrogen is not just useful for the future, but also at the present time.
Yeah, that's why we call it that low-carbon hydrogen economy. Thank you, Jean-Marie, for adding that. We should have got you up here. Any other questions or comments? Guys, really, with all the climate change protests that are going on in the world right now, you do not want to know anything about hydrogen. Come on, I know. Pop
can I
up some
jump in
hands
here?
there. Yeah, please, Choon, go ahead.
What Professor Bassett said is very true. But I'm also now looking at more greener method of producing this liquid fuel. And although the concentration that we get at the moment is quite low, 10%, but we can distill this acid using the waste heat from the sun at the bottom of the CPV cells, which is available at about 70, 80 degrees Celsius. And at partial vacuum, we can easily distill the solution to get concentration up to 85 and 90. So the notion of sunlight to liquid fuel is really attractive because the liquid fuel can replace the infrastructure. Because as mentioned by Gaetano, they are now doing research in burning the formic acid directly in the IC engines. And this is a good step forward because the amount of changes, modifications on the IC engine is quite minimal. So although it's still new, but I think one day the problem of combusting this liquid oxygen hydrogen carrier, it will become true one day.
Thank you, Choon, for those comments. Did we have a question here?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the talk. I just have actually two questions. First one is, when we're talking about the future, the economy of the hydrogen, how would you explain, for example, overcoming the conventional technologies or the existing technologies nowadays in the market? Because that's how we really going to push forward for sustainable hydrogen economy. That's one thing. The other thing is when it comes to ammonia, I am constantly thinking about NOx production and also corrosions. So I just want to comment on that and hear your feedback. Thank you.
Before one of you answer, maybe let's just keep it as less technical as we can for our general audience, but please, Gaetano, go on ahead.
Well, I can answer right away for the ammonia. You're right, NOx is an issue, as well as unburned ammonia. Ammonia doesn't like to burn very well. So if you put ammonia in an IC engine right now, and you don't do anything with that, most likely you're going to get a lot of unburned ammonia out. That's a toxic, and it's very dangerous. So this is why we're looking at research on how to burn ammonia effectively. And mostly the strategy we're following is to either mix it with hydrogen or with another biofuel so that we can burn it more effectively. Regarding NOx, we have strategies that we have developed for combustion to reduce NOx emission. We can, of course, the combustor has to be properly designed to burn ammonia. But this is mostly what we're looking for, either stationary gas turbine, small gas turbine, or for marine engines. The same, ammonia is just one of the possible fuel. We're looking at methanol, and I want to emphasize this. It's in the future, we're not going to have a single fuel. We're not just going to have hydrogen. We're going to have a very rich portfolio of fuels. We, of course, need to do investment. We need to do research to burn them all effectively, but it's not going to be a single solution to all these problems. Anybody wants to answer the other question? I forgot what was.
What was your first question? Oh, you've got it, Andy?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
In order to really deploy the technology in a larger scale, of course, we are going to face a lot of challenges. But we can start it with a small region, small place, where when you want to start a new town, when you want to start a new city, Neom comes to mind. And this is why I believe Saudi Arabia has one of the greatest potential to demonstrate the feasibility and to realize the hydrogen energy system.
Yeah, nicely put. And there's a question there in the back. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Hello. Actually, I have two questions. So first one is, does, when you speak about hydrogen economy, you expect that all electricity comes from green sources only? Because mostly electricity come from...
In the future, yes.
In the future, yes. So we expect that electricity does not come from coal or natural gas. Okay. And the second question, so as everybody understands, like for example, solar energy is nice and can be applied, for example, in sunny areas like in Saudi Arabia, but can it be applied worldwide, like wind energy and geothermal energy and hydrothermal energy? But there is one technology. It's a question now, it's more off topic, but still it's like a base for whole hydrogen economy future. So there is one technology that has some strong theoretical background, which were already built, for example, in Soviet Union physical institutes at the end of the 20th century, but has not been applied in a large scale, which is completely green and produces a lot of energy. It's thermonuclear technology. So the question is, it would be a very nice and bright future for the whole humanity if this technology would be applied with energy technology would be applied with hydrogen economy. But my question is, do you believe that such like green technology, like thermonuclear energy or other green technologies could be applied maybe in 100 years worldwide, while all carbon fossil fuels energy sources would be decreased drastically, or maybe in 100 years. But I'm more interested in thermonuclear one. What do you believe in about it? Thank you.
When you talk about thermonuclear, do you mean uranium as a stock?
Sorry?
Uranium fuel, 235.
You're talking about nuclear energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, nuclear energy is, I consider as nice, but it still has some, I mean,
okay.
Fuels that have to be stored in some way and still considered dangerous, while thermonuclear one doesn't have anything left after using. So, do you believe that it can be applied in 100 years for the hydrogen economy needs?
This is a very interesting question, and I think that is the question that everyone should also ask. Because energy is a very complicated issue. When we say the future for hydrogen economy, we do not mean that the future only contains hydrogen. Energy has to be a mix from all the sources, and hopefully in the future, carbon neutral sources. And nuclear power is certainly an option, and even at the present time, nuclear power is considered cleaner. But unfortunately, most of us only enjoy free lunch. You want to use electricity, but you don't want to pay the cost. We have problem to see the danger, the risk posed by nuclear power plants, but we have no problem continue burning fossil fuels to generate CO2, NOx, PM 2.5. But having said that, if we want to use nuclear power plant to meet our future energy demand, the scale is very unrealistic. We have to build a nuclear power plant like more than 2 per day until 2050 if we want to meet our energy demand at that time. And even if this is financially feasible, socially it is all difficult. No one would like to have a nuclear power plant built next to their home. So I think while nuclear power is an option, we really have to work towards solar energy. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, a place like Saudi Arabia, with plenty of sun, but for some place that solar energy may not be a feasible option. And this is why we believe conversion and storage of solar energy into fuels that can be transported is important.
Gaetano, did you want to add anything to that? Or?
Well, I was going to add exactly the same comment Andy did. This is the whole idea of a hydrogen economy. You cannot produce solar and wind everywhere, but countries like Saudi Arabia, they can export this energy everywhere. They can go to South Korea, to Japan, where putting a solar farm or a wind farm becomes more challenging or more expensive. So this is the whole idea behind the economy part of this discussion. And the other thing I want to underline is thermonuclear, sure, in the future, maybe that's an option, but we need to act for climate change now. Mm-hmm. And this is why I really appreciate the comment you made, Jean-Marie made. It's everything we can do now to reduce our carbon footprint, we should act. We should not wait for a big revolution in energy. Everything needs to be done gradually as soon as become available. With, of course, as Andy mentioned, this will cost us. It's a price tag to it, but it's necessary.
Very nicely put. We have another question here in the back. Please, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a question maybe in a slightly different direction than the last one. If I understood correctly from what was said in the panel, we're kind of relying on people's social and environmental conscience to choose the success or for the success rate of the hydrogen economy. And I was just wondering how dependent we are on that to make this a success, and to what degree the Hindenburg effect might implicate the introduction of a hydrogen economy.
Go ahead.
I can.
Yeah, please.
I can start. So, I agree with what you're saying. It's I don't believe that people will change their habit. A small percentage of people is gonna eat the salad instead of the burger, but most people still go at the McDonald's or Burger King, and so it's the same is gonna happen for energy. I believe in government intervention. I believe in CO2 taxation or some form of government that's making this possible. Just relying on the goodwill of people, we would not have the amount of energy waste, or in general of food waste and the water waste that we have right now, and we cannot just rely on the people, in my opinion. I'm a little bit more cynical.
I believe what we need is a thorough analysis and from scientific point of view as well. And once we can confirm that hydrogen or renewable energy of a kind is the right direction, we should make every effort to create policies to support that. Mm-hmm. For example, I still remember when I was a kid, when we use gasoline, it contains tetraethyl. That's cheap, convenient. Do you still see the tetraethyl lead additives on the road? No, because we know it's not the right thing to do. We know it is toxic, and we have a policy to stop it. And I think that's the same attitude that we need to have when we talk about the future energy options.
Can I make also a follow-up on that? But again, I want to insist on the economy part of that. We need to build an economy around it. There must be people making money and wanted to invest on this, let's say, ammonia or formic acid. There must be some incentive for private as well, private institutions to invest, following up on regulation from government so that an economy becomes feasible around it.
Yeah, very good. Remembering that ammonia and formic acid are hydrogen carriers. Any other? Yeah, there's a question here. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for being here. So I think that most paradigm shifting technologies come with a lot of unforeseen negative consequences. And I do think that the hydrogen economy and hydrogen use is paradigm shifting technology. So I'm wondering, is it possible to predict and kind of protect against the negative consequences that may come from it? What do you guys think?
I still want to iterate that getting hydrogen from renewable sources is one of the best way to supplement the kind of fossil fuel that we are consuming today. Now, in the example I mentioned earlier, it is actually a carbon neutral carrier, because when you are forming the liquid fuel, you are putting in carbon dioxide and water under the electrodes. And when you are generating electricity, like in a fuel cell, hydrogen fuel cell, then you release back the carbon dioxide. So the amount of carbon dioxide remains neutral in the process. That's why this is a very straightforward, but it's a very nice approach. We should work on it more in this direction.
I want to make a follow-up in a slightly different direction. When you say negative consequences, one thing I'm concerned with the way we in this panel as well are talking about hydrogen economy. We're talking about this large amount of energy that's available. And this, unfortunately, okay, can be true for energy, but this is, in terms of a sustainable economy, is only one part of it. So we're talking of increased usage of water. I mean, if you're thinking of increasing energy, it means that you're producing more goods, using more goods, and this may bring us to a less sustainable economy, not just from the energy perspective, but from a global perspective. And this may give us a false sense of confidence that we solved all the issues. This is one thing I'm concerned.
Very good. Andy, do you want to think?
Yeah. I guess the issue is probably during the process of leading to the good or better solutions. If hydrogen can be a future energy carrier, what should we use? And this is why a thorough discussion and by scientists and also from public is important. For example, we have the options now: formic acid, ammonia, methanol, and even other carbon-based fuels. Which is good? Which is better? And which is unrealistic? And if we can have a thorough discussion and to identify the right target, that can avoid unnecessary destruction financially, politically, energetically, and environmentally.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, we have time for one more question. I think it's there. Hannah. Hi.
Thank you, Nadia, and thank you, professors, for this informative panel discussion. Since we're discussing economics of hydrogen, is there a way to quantify the price of hydrogen energy relative to other renewable sources such as solar, wind, or geothermal, etc.?
Go on.
Okay, maybe I'll start because I happen to remember all the numbers. So first of all, current hydrogen price is equivalent to $6 per gallon of gasoline. if we want to use it as a fuel for cars. And that is considered pretty high. But if you are from Europe, you will think this number is still reasonable. Okay? But if once we can produce hydrogen from renewable energy, for example, solar energy, the price can be much cheaper. For example, I think I can say that, okay? In the recent, the Abu Dhabi solar farm, they have the system that they can operate at the power of 1.17 gigawatt. And with that system, they produce electricity and sell it at a rate of 2.4 cents, US cents, per kilowatt hour. And if we use that energy to produce hydrogen, the hydrogen will be even cheaper than the gas we had 4 years ago. So if that can be deployed in a larger scale, hydrogen fuel price would be lower and lower to the degree that becomes feasible, more feasible economically.
Gaetano or Kim Choon, do you have any more to add to that?
Well, last week, I was at Dubai attending a conference, and there was a paper given by solar PV company. They even quote as low as 1.72 cents per kilowatt hour as a tender price. So you can see the cost of electricity is getting cheaper and cheaper in the solar PV category. It's even lower than CCGT that can provide. Combined cycle gas turbine plant can provide.
Gaetano?
Well, the way I see it is hydrogen is not a fuel in the conventional sense. It's an hydrogen, it's a carrier, it's an energy carrier. It's just a way to storage electricity. And one of the way to see hydrogen economy, the way I presented is, let's start with the excess energy, the one we could not use. So it's zero price or even negative price because you would curtail it otherwise. So you're getting something out of it for not free because there's still the capital cost to build the electrolysis or whatever technology we're using to extract the hydrogen. But it's not competing with solar or wind. It's just taking advantage of the variability of these resources.
Thank you. Okay, I think we'll end it there. Although we could be sitting here for another hour, I'm pretty sure, with the three of you chatting away. I just want to say thank you very much to the audience for taking the time out today and listening to us and all your questions. Very, very nice conversations there. But let's give a round of applause to our three KAUST faculty and thank them. All right, thank you.